Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 9 in HIM 206. This week, we're going to focus on two things. We're going to start assigning people to different sites and hopefully finish this up this week. And then we're going to focus on something that's really, really important. It's critical for both your professional success and your co-op, and that is professional communication. I want to be really direct and to the point about this. Nearly all the problems that we've seen in co-ops in the last couple of years are the result of poor communication. Either it's excessive socializing, it's people not asking questions and they're just forging ahead and creating issues when issues didn't really have to happen. It's people operating on assumptions and not communicating expectations to supervisors. It's people not even communicating in some cases when they're unable to report to a site. These are all preventable, and they all come back to the same thing, and that is communication. And now it's even more important because we're going to be having more and more remote internships. So it's going to be really critical that you communicate with your site supervisor about what is expected of you, whether it's how much work you're supposed to be doing, when you're supposed to be online, all these different types of things. It's different than when you're physically in the office. Your remote manager can't see you. They can't check in with you the same way that they could when you're right down the hall. So you need to be more intentional, more proactive, and more professional in how you communicate. And that includes email, messaging platforms, and virtual meetings. I have a short video that I found on YouTube that I think you'll find useful. It's not anything earth-shattering. However, it's just a good reminder about some of the good practices, particularly when having remote co-ops and internships. Finally, I just have three very important things that I'd like you to bear in mind as you start to think about your internship. Number one, be professional at all times. Treat your co-op as a job, right? That's how your site sees it. We've had several students who have been hired by their site. And while I'll be direct and say, please don't ask a site if they have an opening at this point, um, right out of the box, as one student did. It's not unheard of for sites to, if they like your work ethic, like your professionalism, like your initiative, to offer a position to a student upon graduation. So your communication, reliability, and professionalism are key, and they matter more than I think people realize. Second, ask questions about anything you don't understand. We've had a number of students in the past who have just forged ahead and just said, well, nobody told me, so I just kind of guessed at it. Don't guess, no. Check in with your supervisor, ask what the expectations are. And when you get out into the workplace, it's always a good practice when you start on a job is what do you expect for me to do, know, or accomplish in the first 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, year, whatever it is. So asking thoughtful questions is a sign of professionalism. It's not a sign of weakness, right? By this point in the program, you shouldn't be asking ridiculous questions. I think all of you have great judgment, and but don't be afraid to be proactive and ask questions or ask for confirmation. And finally, if you run into any situation at your co-op site that you're having issues with, please reach out to me directly and reach out as soon as possible. Email's fine, phone call is fine, whatever, just get in touch with me. I'd rather find out about any issue too early than too late. And again, as mentioned, I'll be trying my very best to get a site assignment straightened out. So if you're having any issues with your Complio, if you're having any issues with um, a particular need that you have for a site that has specific hours or what have you, Now is the time to reach out, practice those communication skills, and get in touch with me as soon as possible. Thank you again for being in the class. We're almost at the finish line for winter term, and I'll see you online. Thank you so much. Bye now.